I was cutting into my steak when my wife of 14 years stood up at our family dinner table, tapped her wine glass with a fork, and said the words that would end our marriage. "I have an announcement to make," Diana said, her voice steady and clear. "Alex and I are getting divorced. I've been having an affair with Ashley for the past 6 months, and we're in love." The dining room at our Highland Park mansion went dead silent. 18 family members, business associates, all staring at me. My name is Alexander Caldwell. I'm 52 years old, and I've been running Caldwell Construction for the past 15 years since taking over day-to-day operations from my father. That night was supposed to be our quarterly family business meeting. Instead, it became the stage for the biggest betrayal of my life. I didn't react, not visibly anyway. I just set down my fork, wiped my mouth with the napkin, and stood up. "Excuse me," I said, "I need some air." I walked out of that dining room with every eye following me, stepped onto our back patio overlooking the pool, and allowed myself to smile. Because Diana had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought I'd been blind to her affair. She had no idea I'd been preparing for this moment for 4 months. Let me back up. Diana and I met in 2008 when she was the CFO at a competing construction firm. I was 36, she was 32. We started as business rivals, then partners, then lovers. She was smart, ambitious, and understood the construction business better than most men I knew. When we married in 2010, she became CFO of Caldwell Construction. Together, we built the company from $15 million to $50 million in annual revenue over the next 14 years. We have 2 kids. Sarah is 13, honor roll student, wants to study architecture like her old man. Michael is 11, on the autism spectrum but brilliant with numbers. They're my world, and the thought of losing them in a custody battle kept me awake at night during those dark months when I first suspected something was wrong. Ashley is my niece, my brother's daughter. After my brother and his wife died in a car accident when Ashley was 8, I raised her like my own daughter. Paid for her private school, her Harvard MBA, gave her a job as marketing director at Caldwell Construction when she graduated. She's 29 now, ambitious, and I always thought she'd eventually take over the company when I retired. I treated her better than I treated my own kids sometimes, making sure she never felt like an outsider in our family. My father, William Caldwell, founded the company in 1962 when he came back from Korea. He built it from nothing, just him and a truck, into the premier construction firm in North Texas. When he handed me the reins 15 years ago, he made it clear this wasn't just a business, it was a legacy. "This company will take care of the Caldwell family for generations," he told me. "Don't let anyone destroy what we built." The first signs appeared in early 2024. Diana started working late more often, always with reasonable explanations. Client dinners, vendor meetings, project reviews. Her phone became off limits. Password changed twice in 3 months. When I'd walk into a room while she was texting, she'd quickly switch screens or put the phone face down. I'm not the jealous type, but I'm observant. That's what made me successful in business. You notice patterns, inconsistencies, things that don't add up. In construction, missing details can cost you millions or get someone killed. So, I started paying attention to the details in my marriage. In late May 2024, I noticed Diana mentioning Ashley more frequently in casual conversation. How Ashley had shared an interesting marketing strategy, how she'd helped review some contracts, how she really understood the pressure of running a family business. Each comment seemed innocent, but together they formed a pattern I didn't like. The breaking point came one evening in June when I walked into Diana's home office. She was on the phone, speaking in a low voice, and when she saw me, she quickly said, "I'll call you back," and hung up. When I asked who it was, she said it was Ashley discussing a client proposal. But Ashley had been in Austin that day at a job site. I checked. That's when I knew for certain something was wrong. Diana had lied to my face, and she'd used Ashley to do it. The 2 people I trusted most in this world were working together against me. I'm a strategist by nature. In business, you don't react to the first sign of trouble. You gather information, build a complete picture, then make your move. When you're dealing with a $50 million company and the welfare of 200 employees, emotion is a luxury you can't afford. Control is everything. So I called Theodore Hoffman, my attorney. We'd worked together for 8 years on various business deals. Ted was thorough, discreet, and worth every dollar of his $500 hourly rate. More importantly, he understood family businesses and the unique challenges they face. I need you to review my prenup with Diana, I told him over coffee downtown. And I need to understand what happens to business assets in a divorce scenario. Ted didn't ask unnecessary questions. He just pulled out his tablet and started taking notes. Looking at protection or preparation? He asked. Both, I said. And I need to understand it fast. The prenup was solid, standard for families like ours. In case of divorce, each party retained what they brought into the marriage plus 50% of jointly acquired assets during the marriage. The problem was defining jointly acquired. Diana had signing authority on several subsidiary accounts. She'd been involved in major business decisions for 14 years. A good lawyer could argue she'd earned equity far beyond what the prenup specified. Here's the issue, Ted explained, pulling up documents on his laptop. She's not just a spouse who happened to work for the company. She's been CFO since day one of your marriage. Her name is on contracts, financial statements, loan applications. If she wants to fight this, she could claim she's entitled to significant equity as a business partner, not just a wife. That kept me up at night. We were looking at potentially losing control of my family's legacy. The company my father built with his bare hands could end up in the hands of someone who'd betrayed us. So Ted and I started preparing. We needed to document everything, reorganize certain structures, and most importantly, do it without raising suspicion. I'm going to send over some updated corporate documents, Ted told me a week later. Standard stuff. Updated operating agreements for the subsidiaries, new compliance protocols, annual corporate maintenance. Just have Diana sign where indicated. Those documents looked routine. Pages of legal language about corporate governance, fiduciary responsibilities, standard operating procedures. Diana had seen hundreds of similar documents over the years, but buried in that language were clauses that transferred operational control of 3 key subsidiaries to me personally, moved voting shares into a structure Diana couldn't touch, and essentially made her shares worthless unless I agreed otherwise. The timing had to be perfect. I waited for a Tuesday evening in late June when Diana was buried in quarterly reports, stressed about deadlines, and distracted. She was at the kitchen table with papers spread everywhere, calculator in one hand, phone in the other, fielding calls from our Austin office about a project delay. More paperwork? She asked when I set the documents in front of her, annoyed but not suspicious. Annual compliance stuff, I said. Ted's being thorough because of the new IRS regulations. You know how he is. She nodded, still focused on her calculator. Where do I sign? I watched her scrawl her signature on 6 different documents, each one quietly dismantling the financial leverage she thought she had. She was probably thinking about Ashley while she signed away her future. But I wasn't done. I needed to understand what I was really dealing with. Was this just an affair, or was there something bigger? So I hired a private investigator, Patricia Reynolds, former FBI agent who specialized in corporate investigations. She came highly recommended by Ted, who'd used her services in other complex cases. I met Patricia at a coffee shop in Deep Ellum. She was professional, direct, no nonsense. What exactly are you looking for? She asked. The truth, I said. I need to know if my wife and niece are just having an affair or if there's something more. Business implications, financial motivations, other people involved. I paid her $8,000 up front and gave her 3 names, Diana Caldwell, Ashley Caldwell, and any associates who might be relevant. I need this done quietly, I told her. If they know they're being watched, everything changes. Patricia's report came back 3 weeks later in mid-July. 47 pages of surveillance photos, financial records, communication logs, and documented behavior patterns. The affair was real, started back in March 2024 at a business conference in Austin. But what else Patricia found concerned me more. Ashley had gambling debts, serious ones. She'd been playing high-stakes online poker through what appeared to be legitimate cryptocurrency trading platforms, but was actually underground gambling operations. She was losing consistently, chasing losses with bigger bets. She owed somewhere north of $150,000 to people who don't accept payment plans. Your niece has a problem, Patricia told me when she delivered the report. This isn't casual gambling. She's addicted, and she's in deep with some dangerous people. The kind who break fingers when you're late with payments. But there was someone else involved, Nikolai Petrov, a Russian real estate investor I'd met once at a charity auction. Smooth talker, expensive suits, always seemed to have money for the right causes. He'd been meeting with Diana and Ashley regularly over the past 2 months. Coffee shops, restaurants, once at a hotel bar in Fort Worth. The three of them having long conversations, reviewing documents, planning something. Patricia had managed to get cell phone records through methods I didn't ask about. The messages were coded but clear enough once you understood the context. They were planning to use the divorce to take control of family assets. Diana would demand her share, claim she'd been instrumental in building the business over 14 years, inflate her contributions. Ashley would back her up with testimony about Diana's crucial role in company growth. Nikolai had lined up lawyers, financial strategists, even a PR firm to shape the narrative. They were going to position me as the controlling spouse who'd sidelined his ambitious wife, paint Diana as the undervalued partner who deserved a larger share, use media pressure and family politics to force a settlement that gave her significant equity. Then Ashley and Nikolai would help her leverage that equity into actual control, pushing me out of my own family's company while they took over operations. Ashley would get the CEO position she'd always wanted, Diana would get financial control, and Nikolai would get his foot in the door of Texas construction contracts. It was actually a decent plan, if I hadn't seen it coming. I sat in my home office reading Patricia's report for the third time and started laughing. Not from joy, but from the pure absurdity of it. Diana thought she was playing chess while I'd been watching the whole board. Ashley thought she was finally getting her moment in the spotlight. Nikolai thought he'd found a weakness to exploit in American family business. They had no idea what was about to hit them. I spent the next 2 months quietly fortifying my position. I documented every business decision Diana had been involved in over 14 years, including the ones where she disagreed with successful strategies. I secured testimonials from department heads about who actually drove growth and who just managed the numbers. I moved personal assets into protected trusts my father had established years ago for exactly this kind of family emergency. The hardest part was explaining things to my kids without destroying their relationship with their mother. Sarah, at 13, was already asking questions about why Mom was working so late and why there was tension in the house. Michael, with his autism, picked up on changes in routine and got anxious when family patterns shifted. "Dad, are you and Mom fighting?" Sarah asked me one evening in August while we were reviewing her architecture portfolio for high school applications. "Adults sometimes have disagreements," I told her. "But whatever happens between your mother and me, we both love you and Michael more than anything. Is that why Mom seems angry all the time?" I chose my words carefully. "Your mother is dealing with some difficult decisions right now. That's not your fault or your responsibility." I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. But I was already thinking about custody arrangements, about how to protect them from the chaos that was coming. My lawyer Ted had connected me with a family counselor who specialized in helping kids navigate high-conflict divorces. Meanwhile, I changed passwords on all personal accounts, updated beneficiaries on insurance policies, and made sure every joint account had frozen transfer protocols that required both signatures for withdrawals above $5,000. I also started documenting Diana's daily routine in detail: where she went, who she met, how often she lied about her whereabouts. Ted drafted divorce papers, but we didn't file yet. We included forensic accounting provisions, fraud investigation clauses, and most importantly, enforcement of the prenup's infidelity clause. Texas isn't a pure, no-fault state when significant assets are involved. Adultery still matters in property division, especially when business equity is at stake. But I needed one more piece of leverage, something that would make Ashley think twice about testifying against me. So I decided to buy her gambling debt. I called Patricia again in late August. "The gambling debt," I said. "I need names." "Who does she owe?" Patricia hesitated. "That's dangerous territory, Alex. These aren't legitimate businessmen." "I don't need to meet them," I said. "I just need to understand the structure. How does someone buy debt in this kind of situation?" 2 days later, Patricia gave me a name. Vincent Carboni ran an online poker operation disguised as cryptocurrency trading platforms. Multiple websites, sophisticated technology, but essentially underground gambling targeting young professionals with money. Ashley wasn't his only victim. Patricia warned me not to approach Vincent directly, but I'm not stupid. I had Ted reach out through a retired Texas Ranger who'd done security consulting for us over the years. The message was simple. I wanted to buy Ashley's debt as a business transaction. Vincent called me personally. Rough voice, Brooklyn accent, clearly not impressed by Texas money. "You're the uncle," he said. "The one whose wife your niece is screwing around with." "That's me," I said. "Why do you want her debt?" he asked. "You planning something stupid?" "I'm planning something smart," I said. "She owes you $150,000. I'll give you $175,000 cash and you transfer the debt to me. You make $25,000 for a phone call." He laughed. "I like you. You're practical, but I need to know you're serious about this." "Dead serious," I said. "And unlike Ashley, I actually pay my debts on time. The logistics took time. I couldn't just walk into a bank and withdraw $175,000 without triggering federal reporting requirements. So over the next 2 months, I structured withdrawals from various corporate accounts, never more than $9,000 at a time, always properly documented as legitimate business expenses through our security consulting budget, legal fees, and equipment purchases. We met at a diner in Deep Ellum in early October. Vincent showed up with one associate. I showed up alone with a briefcase containing $175,000 in hundreds. Clean bills, nothing traceable, exactly what he'd requested. "Your niece is an idiot," Vincent said as we completed the transaction. "Kept doubling down on losing hands, no discipline whatsoever. Thought she could beat mathematical probability with wishful thinking." "She's always been like that," I said. "Thinks rules don't apply to her because she's smart." We signed a handwritten agreement transferring Ashley's debt to me. He gave me copies of all her markers, payment schedules, everything. Legally questionable, but practically airtight. Now I owned Ashley's future, and she had no idea. But I still needed to understand Nikolai's full involvement. Patricia had indicated there was more to his background than successful real estate investing. What she found was exactly what I needed. Nikolai had been investigated by the FBI for money laundering back in 2019. Nothing was ever charged, but the investigation had looked into cryptocurrency transactions involving shell companies that went bankrupt immediately after large fund transfers. His involvement with Diana and Ashley meant he was using them to gain access to American construction contracts, probably planning to use Caldwell Construction as a front for moving money internationally. That wasn't just divorce fraud, that was federal criminal conspiracy. The week before our family dinner in late October, Ted called me. "Everything's in place," he said. "The moment she files or makes any move, we counter immediately. She'll have zero leverage." "Good," I said, "because she's going to make her move soon. I can feel it." I was right. She just did it more publicly than I'd expected. The morning after Diana's announcement, I woke up in the guest bedroom. Diana had already left, presumably with Ashley. My phone had 31 missed calls. Text messages ranged from supportive to accusatory. My father wanted an emergency meeting. My uncle wanted to know what this meant for the company. Everyone had an opinion about what I should do next. I ignored them all. Instead, I called Ted. "It's time," I said. "File everything." Within 2 hours, divorce papers were filed in Dallas County. Adultery cited, prenup enforcement requested, full financial disclosure demanded, and immediate freezing of all joint accounts and assets pending investigation. Ted had also included a motion for emergency injunctive relief, arguing that Diana posed a flight risk with marital assets given her relationship with a foreign national. The judge granted it by end of business that day. Every account Diana had access to was frozen. Her credit cards linked to our joint account stopped working. The Mercedes she drove, technically leased through the business, was reported as needing to be returned for inventory purposes. Her access to the company building required my written authorization. She called me at 6 that evening, furious. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed. "My cards aren't working. I can't access anything." "You announced a divorce and there are consequences," I said calmly. "You wanted this public. Now it's legal. You can't just cut me off," she said. "I have rights. I helped build that business for 14 years. "Did you?" I asked. "Because I have documentation suggesting otherwise. But we can discuss that with lawyers." She hung up. 20 minutes later, her lawyer called Ted. Howard Pellman, expensive suit and mediocre track record. He made demands. Ted laughed at him and said, "Your client committed adultery with the plaintiff's niece, announced it publicly at a family gathering, and you think you have leverage? File your motions." The confrontation needed to be controlled, public enough to matter, but private enough to allow them an exit. I chose a restaurant called Meridian in Bishop Arts District, neutral territory where we'd had business dinners before. I had Ted send formal meeting invitations to Diana, Ashley, and Nikolai with their lawyers. Mediation discussion, settlement possibilities. The lawyers agreed immediately. They thought I was ready to negotiate. When they arrived, I was already seated with Ted beside me, leather portfolio containing every piece of evidence we'd compiled. Diana looked confident, almost smug. Ashley sat next to her, nervous but trying to look defiant. Nikolai sat at the end, watching carefully. "Thanks for coming," I said. "Let's cut to the chase." "My client is willing to discuss terms," Howard said, "but she expects fair compensation for her 14 years of contributions." "Fair compensation," I repeated. Interesting phrase. I slid the first document across the table. The operating agreement Diana had signed in June. "What is this?" she asked. "Your signature," I said. "Transferring operational control of the subsidiaries. You signed it willingly." Her face went pale. "That was routine paperwork. It was corporate governance compliance, I agreed, which you authorized." Howard grabbed the document, started reading. His confident expression cracked. I slid the second document across. Patricia's surveillance report. Photos of Diana and Ashley, time-stamped from March through October. Evidence of adultery, I said, which according to our prenuptial agreement constitutes grounds for fault-based divorce and forfeiture of equity claims beyond the base agreement. Diana's hands were shaking. "You were spying on us." "I was protecting family assets," I said. "Which brings us to the real issue." I looked at Ashley. "You thought you could manipulate a family divorce into a corporate takeover. You convinced Diana she deserved more, planned to use media pressure to force me out." Ashley tried to look confused. "I don't know what you're talking about." I slid the third document across. Cell phone records, meeting logs, communications with Nikolai. "Yes, you do. What you three planned constitutes conspiracy to commit fraud. We have documented evidence of coordinated efforts to manipulate legal proceedings for financial gain." The table went silent. "But let's talk about something else," I said, looking at Ashley. "Your gambling debt." Her face went white. Diana turned to stare at her. "Ashley owes $150,000 to people who run illegal gambling operations," I said. "Except she doesn't owe them anymore. She owes me. I bought the debt." I slid across Vincent's paperwork. Ashley looked like she might be sick. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Diana, you accept the divorce terms exactly as outlined in our prenuptial agreement. No additional claims, no equity demands. In exchange, I don't pursue criminal fraud charges." "That's blackmail," Howard said weakly. "That's a settlement offer," Ted corrected, "based on documented criminal conspiracy." I turned to Ashley. "Your debt is forgiven, but you're permanently out of the family business. No contact with Caldwell Enterprises." She nodded, unable to speak. "And Nikolai," I said, "you disappear from our business circle. If I hear your name associated with any attempt to interfere with Caldwell interests, I release everything to the FBI." Nikolai stood up and left without a word. Diana signed the settlement that afternoon. She got $2.2 million, her share of joint personal assets accumulated during our marriage. She lost everything else. 6 months later, I established the Caldwell Foundation for Young Entrepreneurs. We help kids from working-class backgrounds start legitimate businesses. It's become something meaningful, something that matters more than revenge. I'm 52 years old now, single, successful, running a company I'm proud of. My kids adapted better than expected. Sarah still wants to study architecture. Michael thrives with our new routine. Sometimes people ask if I was too harsh. I tell them no. Diana, Ashley, and Nikolai made choices. They chose greed over integrity. I just made sure those choices had consequences. That's not revenge, that's accountability.